Okay, lovely. Hi, thank you all so much for being here, and thank you so much for Liza Long being here. She is going to be giving our next talk, which is Accessibility by Design, Agentic AI for Pressbook Accessibility. My name is Melanie Gagich, and I am one of the OpenCon members. And again, I'm so happy to welcome Liza. Dr. Liza Long serves as Director of Digital Learning and Artificial Intelligence for the Idaho State Board of Education, where she leads statewide initiatives at the intersection of technology, equity, and access in higher ed. She is also a doctoral student in English at Idaho State University and teaches at the College of Western Idaho. Liza holds an EDD in Organizational Leadership and an MA in Classics. She writes about AI and education in her Substack, Artisanal Intelligence. I love the Substack, and thank you for being here, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm hoping.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, awesome. Sorry, I'm traveling today. I'm at another conference, so I'm hoping that this will all work. You'll notice I don't have a PowerPoint, but I do want to share my screen. I have lots of goodies I want to share with you today. So, first of all, thank you to the organizers for inviting me. I was so excited to have the chance to share some of the work I've been doing with agentic browsers. So, I've noticed sometimes when I give presentations, especially when I'm talking about some of the things I'm going to share today, that people feel like, whoa, that is just too much. Okay, so I want to sit with that space for a minute. I know sometimes artificial intelligence and our conversations around them can feel a little buzzy. And I always like to ground my presentations on this term, first of all, by telling you what I'm talking about when I say artificial intelligence. So I'm still specifically talking about large language models. And what I'm going to show you today mostly involves large language models. I'm also going to briefly show you how you might start to think about some of these problems with accessibility by using a coding tool. The one I will show you is Colab. Many of you might have heard of Codex from OpenAI, or you might have heard of Claude Code, which I've also used, and it's kind of amazing. Now, all that in mind, whoa, we're already like code, right? I do feel like in the AI space and in the large language model space, there are some, I'll call it out, some gatekeeping terms, right? Like the term prompt engineering that we heard in 2024 can feel very much like, oh, that's not a space for me. That's not where I belong, especially for someone like me with a very strong humanities background. You heard I was a classicist in my original academic life, so Latin and Greek and all the useful things that come along with those two languages and cultures. Though I will say it's proven to be a remarkably useful degree. Right now, my research interests are with Old English and thinking about building local language models that would be based on Old English text. So I really like the intersection of open education and artificial intelligence, but the specific problem that I'm sharing today, I always like to start by acknowledging there are absolutely ethical concerns with the use of these tools. I think it's important for us to be aware of them. It's important for us to be in conversation about those ethical challenges. I think environment is on a lot of our minds. For me personally, it's algorithmic bias right now that really bugs me the most. And so it's a joy that I can actually harness these tools to do something that builds equity and builds accessibility and access. The proximal need for what I'm showing you today was, of course, the Title II WCAG 2.1 deadline requirements. So many of you, like me, were scrambling to try to meet accessibility guidelines for, well, not guidelines, requirements for anything that was based in websites. So in my role, this involved looking at Canvas courses, and I also oversee our statewide Pressbooks account. So I focused on Pressbooks and what we would need to do to remediate our Pressbooks sites. Fortunately,
Hey,
Pressbooks
Liza.
already has, yes.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.
People are asking if you can minimize like my face on the screen
Oh,
instead
are
of
you
covering
on
up the
there?
screen.
You know what? That's like a
Yay, that's
new,
great.
sorry about that. That's like a new
It's
thing
okay.
that Zoom just added. I was like, where did that come from? Yeah. Is that better, you guys? Now you can see it. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
This is the biggest first world problem. I'm just gonna call it out. I'm so used to two screens. So traveling, I'm like, okay, we're gonna make this work. Thanks, Mandy, for letting me know. So what I did is I started thinking about the problem of accessibility and how I might be able to use the agentic AI. So this is a large language model, but it's a browser extension that I was using. You'll see. By the way, this just sounds so fancy, right? We're like, oh, agentic, what is that? Blah blah. If you use the Chrome browser and you've enabled it, and you have Google One, I think, which I have for free as a student right now, you'll see this little Ask Gemini. I'm going to show you Claude, but I just to show you how embedded these agentic tools are becoming in our lives. And maybe you can check right now. Maybe you have this already on your Chrome browser. I'm using the Chrome browser. And I also have to say, in light of equity, the stuff I'm going to show you involves paid tools, right? I am at the $20 per month model. I think the cool stuff I have with Gemini, when they finally charge me for it, is going to cost me like $100 a month. So they get you in as a student with a free year, and then you think you can't live without it. So this right here, this little Ask Gemini, is in fact an agentic browser. And it will even tell you, we can ask it, it can explain agentic workflows. What I'm going to show you is an agentic workflow. So this is talking about how it's reviewing this page in real time and providing a summary and talking about what is going on here. And this is in fact what I'm going to show you, that I did alt text document remediation, accessibility audits. That's exactly what I'm going to show you that I did today. So that's a really quick demonstration just right there of an agent in action on a website. There are other types of agents, by the way. Claude Skills would be an agent. We're increasingly referring to custom GPTs and custom gems, if you've created some of those, as agents. So these are just things that do stuff for you. That's all it is, right? I think we can all agree that accessibility remediation is not particularly difficult, but it is quite tedious. And again, Pressbook has some great tools built in. You'll see them in a second. But even with those great accessibility tools, some of it is just clicking a button, but it's a lot of clicking a button. What if we could get Claude to do that for us, right? So that's that Ask Gemini right there. What I will show you that I used, that I also have enabled as a browser extension, is Claude. So Claude, you'll notice, didn't do what Gemini did. It doesn't have any conversation starters. So I want to walk you through the mistakes I made before, and the things I learned from the mistakes, before I show you the process I landed on. When I initially started working with Claude's agentic browser, what I thought I could do is tell it to do exactly what I just described. Hey, Claude, go in there and look for any of the little Pressbooks check marks that we see. So if I go into read this book, if you've used Pressbooks, you might have seen this, right? Like right now, these should actually all be blue because I have run this agentic workflow on this book. So it should all be blue, and it's looking like it is. But I initially thought, well, hey, I could just tell Claude, go in, look at these alerts, and fix them. Okay, y'all, no. Claude's agentic browser doesn't work that way. And what I learned from that experience, I'm actually grateful I did this. If you are an admin, step one of this process before you mess with any book at all will be to go to the export, and you're going to export an XML, this WordPress XML, or whatever else you want. PDF is fine too, but you're going to want that WordPress XML. You are going to export your book, okay? It's really important for you to do this because these large language models, they're generative, right? Even if you try to explain very clearly and set parameters around what you want them to do, they don't have a mind of their own. They're just predictive text, whatever. But they have a mind of their own. They're like little toddlers, and they will go in there and start rewriting and reformatting all your content. How do I know? Yes, this happened to me. For whatever reason, I had been smart enough to download the WordPress XML. So I already had that. I was able to just restore and start over. But that was my first experience of trying to use an agentic browser. It didn't go well. I bring that up because I think for many of us, when we're working with AI tools, we can try something like that and we can say, oh, well, that didn't work, right? Is that anyone here? You're like, well, I tried it. It was crap. I'm not going to do this tool. But for whatever reason, I am remarkably tenacious and persistent. And I really want to figure these tools out. So I said, okay, I'm going to think this is a mistake in how I asked Claude to do this task. I need to formulate my specific problems more clearly. And I actually worked on formulating that process with Claude. What we determined was I needed to break it up into separate workflows for each accessibility issue I was trying to solve. So I knew that I needed to remediate alt text, and AI is actually pretty good at that. If some of you have probably already played around with that, I had already played around with it a little bit, just getting it to write alt text for me, with images that I had in my books. But it was slow. I was trying to figure out a batch process for this. Agentic Browser did provide a batch process. It uses a lot of compute, a lot of what we call tokens, right? So the process in this book is an Agentic Browser process, but candidly, because I'm concerned about the environment and I'm concerned about the cost, I am working on not token maxing, but token minimizing in my own use of AI in my footprints. So that I'll show you that workflow, and it does work, but it's pretty, that image part, alt tagging, is pretty image intensive. That was the first task we decided on. And we can look at these. Let's see, let's read this book and we'll look at what these look like. So as you go through the book, these are in the accessibility workflow, and I've tried to organize this book. I'll share this link in the chat as well, or maybe if Mandy could grab it or someone could. So I have started with definitions because, again, back to the top of this presentation, I feel like so often these words are just flying over our heads, right? It's just like the second syllabus for students who are new to college and they don't understand all the acronyms we're using. The same thing is developing in the AI space. So the very first part of this book is, hey, you can do this. Here is what I'm talking about. And I also, again, working with Claude, this is Claude and me going back and forth. If you've seen me work with Claude, I don't take a one-shot prompt to anything. I iterate a lot. But I wanted, with these concepts, to think about analogies that people might be able to understand, that students might be able to understand. So I like this analogy for Agentic Browser. We went on it for a while. Think of a self-driving car for the internet. Instead of clicking every button, you tell the agent where you want to go, and it drives through this site to find and fix accessibility barriers. Now, you have to give the agent very specific directions. That's what we learned from my mistake the first time. And then there's those coding tools. And I've also devised, I've given these definitions. I want to just give a tip for this group that I heard from Maha Bali. She's amazing. She has started, whenever she has AI work with her on any content, she's started to add that it needs to meet ARIA application guidelines for assistive technology, which is fantastic. Like, this is one change that I've made when co-authoring any content with AI. So that's not my idea, that's Maha's, but I want to share it with you today because it's so good. So there's just like all this stuff. And then, like, again, these words, sometimes we know what they are. We might hear API and not a lot. We might hear token a lot and not know what they are. So I've tried to provide some definitions for you to start with. And then there's also just a checklist that I created initially for my English students about whether to use AI or not. I have modified that to be specific to using it for accessibility in this chapter. Always remember that AI is your intern, so it's not feeling the frustration like you might, or like someone who needs that accessibility might. You still need to go through and perform your own manual checks. Maybe use the Wave. You all familiar with the Wave extension? Oh, I wonder if I have that one on this computer. I have it. Yeah. So like you can perform your own free Wave accessibility checks, and I think these are really, really important. So there's a contrast error issue here. Wave is identifying that I could go in and still fix. So anyway, I bring up Wave because you've got to be the human in the loop. Like, yes, this does kind of a fantastic job. And I verified that with using Pressbook's tool, but you still want to be the human in the loop. And then I always like to build reflection in for any types of things that I do with AI. So I recommend that you do that. Okay, let me turn, Wave will kind of be a pain for us. So I'm going to turn it off. Let's see. Oops, maybe I can't turn it off. Anyway, maybe we'll leave it on for a minute. All right, let's go. It's just showing all my fun stuff. Okay, let's go to the next page. So, so this is just a link also to some human created resources. And this book is what I want to share with you for the takeaway today, that there's just a lot of good stuff just on accessibility in general in here, not specifically related to AI. So I was building this out, wanting to share this agentic workflow, but also wanting to share the resources we put together in Idaho. So there's lots of good things there. And then this is exactly what I was talking about, right? So the thing about agentic browsers, you might have read the headlines where they went in and wiped an entire company's code database, right? The thing about an agentic browser is if you grant it access, it has power to do stuff, and it will do stuff. So the example I shared with you where it went in and rewrote my content, like actually rewrote the content in my Pressbooks, it can do all kinds of things, right? You definitely want to limit access. I am actually presenting to you on my personal laptop, not on my work laptop. I do not run agentic workflows on my work laptop. That's just my personal thing. I don't want to get into trouble with IT. So always check, right? Like our IT is very uncomfortable with this. Your institution may also have similar issues. So a lot of the stuff where I'm pushing the limits, I'm doing that on my personal laptop. And I right now have a dedicated browser for this where I'm only allowing it access. This is like a different browser profile. I'm only allowing it access to these websites. I'm not allowing it access to go to things that I'm not trusting. So I need to start as the trust. So this little ask before acting, as you baby step into agentic browsing, always keep this on. I will say that as I got more comfortable with Claude on this task, I went to act without asking. So it could just kind of do its thing in the background, just working with this one website. And you'll notice the high risk. So Claude is letting you know that something could go wrong there. So then the workflow itself, we formulated that problem, Claude and I together. How can I get you to do what I want you to do? Go in and just remediate the accessibility issues. Don't touch the layout, don't touch the content, just that. And the first thing that it made really clear is we needed to be working in the HTML. So those of you who've worked in Pressbooks, let me show you what that looks like. Sorry, I have to go back into the edit screen. A lot of us are probably used to this visual screen, right? Where I want Claude working is here. And this is the HTML screen. Okay, so that was the first realization for me, is that we needed to work in the HTML. Then we needed to break our workflows into discrete tasks. So it couldn't just go in and read whatever Pressbooks content problem finder was finding. I needed to tell it what I wanted it to check, and I needed to know what I wanted it to check. So this is the first thing that it looked at, and you have to give the agentic browser permission to log into your Pressbooks account. So you'll need to be logged in with admin privileges to run any of these. You can't just pull up any old website and have it do this. It's got to work on the back end and the admin. And so I think maybe we could try this. I'm always a little hesitant with like live demos, but we'll try it. Why not, right? And this will run in the background. And then I also love to build verification in. So I do ask it to create a report for me. Now I will need to give it, let's just give it this one chapter so that it takes a while to do this. Okay. Oops. We should be able to paste that in. Nope, maybe not. I hope it's not frozen on me. This is why I love live demos, right? Okay, let's see how it does. So that's the workflow, and it's creating a plan. You'll notice it works through screenshots. So it's kind of weird to see this, right? I just told it, go in and do my work. And that is in fact what it is doing. It's going in. It's trying to find, oh, it's going to do, maybe it will do the whole book. Anyway, we'll come back and check in on this, but I wanted you to see, because the first time I saw this, I did a little jump. I was like, oh, what's going on here? But yes, I've given it permission to go in and do this work for me. And it's looking at the introduction. There's no header, so it should leave it alone. Went to the code just like I told it to. Says it's fine. So we'll just let that keep working. I wanted to give you a couple of examples of where I did use it. So the first book I tested it on, this is where I actually learned that it was rewriting stuff. So I'm really glad I had that copy. This isn't, it's, the web link is available, but I haven't really published this in our catalog yet because it's still kind of in beta. I've been moving, building my culture lectures for my world mythology class into this course. But it really, I'll show you kind of what I realized through doing this, right? So this book has had this accessibility workflow run on it. It took a while, so it's working in the background, but you'll notice all of these blue check marks, right? And I'll show you in a minute another one that I did where we can see the difference between the Agentic browser. So a lot of blue check marks. It went in and it did the alt text. There's one thing here, it's still flagging. Oh yes, this is a workflow I haven't written yet. So I have a table in here, and it's flagging the table, and I need to write a workflow for the tables. So this one is, that's an example of where you might decide what workflows do you want to write, and I'll be adding that eventually. But again, just like a lot of blue checks, right? So that feels great. That's really good for me. Now, another book that I ran this on, so I have not run it on my Write What Matters, which incorporates work from Melanie Gagich but this was my colleague Joel Glad, who many of you know. This is some of the first student-facing LLM training. We think we created this in summer of 2023 and Creative Commons licensed it. But you'll notice there's a lot of really bad alerts here. I remixed the content in our statewide resource, and actually these are fixed. When I say go to first alert, it's like fixed. But so this was fixed by these workflows. We went from this one with 6 red flags to this one where it's actually correct and everything has been checked and through the workflows. So that's what we're doing. Let's come back and check on this and see, oh, it's just moving along. And it's not, I think it's probably not finding anything because I have already checked this one. But I wanted to see what it looks like because it's a little bit weird when it's, we'll just let it keep running so we can see the report when we get to the end of that. Okay, so I want to stop here. I want to make sure, sorry, I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute. I'm having a hard time because, again, I'm on one screen. I would love to see if there's any questions in the chat, and then I want to show you one more thing, but just because right now I know there can be.
We do have one question in the Q&A.
Yeah.
Shara asks, how much of a time saver is this process actually? Once you factor in the amount of time it took to create, train, and refine the AI tool, and the fact that you still have to check the AI tool's work afterwards.
No, I'm sorry, it's a tremendous time saver. It's a tremendous time saver, Shara. Because it took me about 2 weeks of working back and forth. I'm going to share my screen again. Sorry, I shouldn't have stopped sharing my screen because now I can't find Zoom. Where did Zoom go? You guys. Let's see. Let me see if I can get to Zoom. Oh, here we are. Okay, hi. Sorry about that. Yes, Greg, the editorially. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, so sure, it was actually a huge time saver. It was just, let's see, it works. So it took me a little while to get it set up and get the workflow going. But again, oh, Mandy, there's your face again, right? It's just doing that.
Yes.
So it took me a little while to get that going. But once we had these workflows, I basically will just come into work, get this thing started, and let it run. And then the check, I'm hoping it'll create the report, because the verification check, well, there's two ways you can check it. You can click through and look at the editorially checker, since that's built into Pressbooks, right? So that's why I showed you those two different ones. It's pretty obvious when something's been fixed, because you've got the blue check, like Greg mentioned, from editorially. It's working great. But the report also helps me flag any other things that I should pay attention to. And I'm just running this in the background. I'm not manually, so I can do my other work, right? Like, it's double working for me. It's, I would say, a huge time saver. So that's a great question.
Can I ask
Or
another
just what?
question?
Yeah,
So this process works with Claude, an agentic Claude, but I think you have to pay for that, you said.
you do. Yes. Yeah.
So
That's what I said up front. It's the $20 a month. And I'm not demoing the alt text one, Mandy, because I would probably hit my token limits. So that's the other downside you need to be aware of, is that especially with the alt text, it's pretty compute intensive. So that's the one. I'm going to show you the collab project in just a minute, but the alt text one is one where I really actually would like to find a coding solution to that runs on my local computer, rather than relying on Claude. And that's the thing, right? Like, so agentic browsers, we're always trying to think, is this the right tool for the task? Do I need an agentic browser to do this task? Is it the right call? You could talk to the large language model about that too. Honestly, that's why I'm thinking about doing the alt text, because I was like, Claude, this is really a token hog. Like, what other ways could we do this? So we're exploring. But Shira's 100% right. You have to find some time to think through these problems, and you have to make changes and update, because again, these tools change so quickly, right? So what might not work, I mean, I just told you what didn't work. Maybe that actually does work now. I was so shocked that it went in and rewrote my content that I'm not willing to to try that editorially checker. But that was my first approach, to say, hey, Claude, go in, read the editorially flags and fix them. And boy, did it just fix so many other things. So the tassel format, it's really good at too. You can see that it's kind of working on tassel right now. That isn't necessarily accessibility, but I started thinking, I was like, oh, hey, if we can do this to go in and fix. So I fixed the alt text issues. I fixed the descriptive link issues. It was really good at that. That's not very token intensive. And then the heading issues, those are pretty common in the Pressbooks that I work with. I don't know why. Maybe people just set things up weirdly. So the heading issues, not very token intensive, really great choice for the agentic browser. Also the tassel attributions. That's where I was thinking. I was like, well, could we use this for other things to make our content more user-friendly, right? And then I don't have it open, but the other thing it does a pretty good job at is writing a VPAT. So I don't have a VPAT open to show you right now. Maybe I could grab one. I'm sure I have a few, but it'll run a VPAT and create that for you on any website, which I also found to be helpful. But that's not the agentic browser. That's really, well, that's it is. It's me, and Claude can do that as well. So have I lost you? Are we okay? We're kind of seeing how this
You're
works.
back. You
Oh,
glitched
no,
for
just have
just
I
a
lost,
moment.
like, just have I, is it like over the top?
Oh,
Yeah.
this is a good question.
Let's see. Can this help with dissertation work in cloud, and any suggestions that may be helpful externally? I need to know a little bit more about that question. I'm not exactly, I'm going to stop sharing for a second while we're chatting. I'm not exactly sure. Oh, what is VPAT? Oh, Greg, aren't you lucky you don't know?
Yes.
Here, I'll share the link to the book. So this is basically, you will learn, Greg, because I just had to fill out a technology tool request for our institution where Greg and I teach together, College of Western Idaho, and they were asking for a VPAT. Yes, Heather's got it right. Voluntary Product Accessibility Template. And the chapter one I just linked to shows you the process and how it checks it. Let me see. I I also have an example I can show you. Oh, actually, I want to share this tool too. UCF has a really, really good tool for if you're for evaluating, doing a VPAT evaluator. So, research in business and HR capital. That's a really good question. I think that's a question to kick back to you, KL. How could this help you in your research? I don't really use the Agentic browser as a research tool. I am so old school, you guys. Like, are you all also like defining the stuff that you want to keep and the stuff that you're willing to outsource to AI? I just love doing my own research, like not in the way that has acquired its meme status on the internet, but I really like Google Scholar. I really like database work, and that feels good for my brain. So the only time I use it for research, I actually will have Gemini run a deep research report for me. And again, these are all paid tools, right? Or I don't really like Perplexity that much. I know some people use Perplexity, but I just really like to do my own research. So let's see. But on the subject of research, I will tell you, yes, it can do research. So I use these agentic browsers in my personal life as well. I'm just bought a house and I'm time crunched. Those of you who know me know I'm always kind of double booking myself, which Claude's also helping me with. But so I needed to buy a house. I needed to move. My lease was about up. I had a 55 to 65-minute commute in from where I was living. So I had very specific parameters. I wanted to be no more than 10 minutes from work. I wanted 2 bedrooms, a townhome if possible. I had my price limit. I put that into that agentic browser I was just showing you, opened up Zillow and said, go Claude, find me the house I want to buy. And it did. It found the house. I bought it. It was just the easiest process ever. It gave me, I told it to give me a list of 5 recommendations and tell me which one it thought was best. And I am in the house that it thought was best. So that was nice. I guess you could use it for research in that way. I use it more for personal research though, or that type of thing. Or if I'm looking for a specific product or something, I needed to buy a keyboard. I gave it a list of specific websites. It could look at Facebook Marketplace, Amazon, Guitar Center, but those were the only websites it could look at. Find me the best keyboard for the buck for what I need. You know who I am as a pianist. Same thing. Found me the keyboard, I purchased it. So that cognitive offloading for that type of research for me has been huge. But for academic research, I'm just such a nerd. I like to do my own. And I want to thank Heather for putting the Section 508 VPAT FAQ link in the chat. That is an excellent resource for what we're talking about. I hope this is all it's still on our radar. Those of you who are working with accessibility, that should be all of us. It's just an ethos of open education to be accessible. We do have a year extension. So hopefully these tools will give you guys some ideas. All right, if there are any other questions about that, I want to show the last thing, but I wanted to make sure I haven't lost you. Like we're feeling okay. Someone put the link to Wave in the chat. Thank you. It's just an accessibility checker. Yeah, we're good. Okay, so let me share my screen again, and we'll get into that code. It's going to be fine. I was at an amazing AI symposium at Cleveland State a couple weeks ago. I got to hang out with Mandy and Melanie in person. It was so cool. But I attended a session that was super interesting. The professor was showing how he was using Colab, and I was really into it. But everyone at my table was like lost. They were like, okay, I'm out now. So I want to start this section by saying, yeah, this stuff, like, I'm not a coder. This is all very new to me. I think, oh, Mandy, I'll kill your face again. Sorry. I think that when we think about the things that are possible with AI, I gave another presentation this week to my first presentation to a computing conference, like hardcore STEM conference. And I presented as an ambassador from the humanities, because I really do truly believe that in this moment, we all need to start familiarizing ourselves with code, not because we're going to need to write code, but because we're going to need to evaluate and use our own code. The things that we can do by playing around with this stuff, we don't want to be left out. We don't want to be left behind. So this is a little different from agentic browsers, but it came out of that research question, that inquiry that I had about using agentic browsers. And I realized that for some things, they were just too token intensive. It might be better to be running some of these problems through code. And this particular one deals with PDFs. Now, I was talking to faculty at a lot of institutions, and they were telling me PDFs were the absolute nightmare for this accessibility deadline. I've found that myself, right? Untagged PDFs, PDFs where the text has not been scanned, so it can't be read. These are really, really a barrier to accessibility. All right. We had a website for the state board that had 700 PDFs that failed the WCAG 2.1 guidelines. 700. Now I know how to OCR. I have Adobe. The thought of doing each of those by hand in Adobe sucked the life out of me. So I started talking to Claude again, and I had access to a GPU because I'm a student with Idaho State University. So a GPU is a computer that can run things faster, and it is in the cloud. It can run things a lot faster. So I don't have a strong enough computer with the hardware on my laptop to do this myself. I did need to use cloud-based computing for this. And I had access to that GPU. So I decided to use Colab. My access is through Colab. Colab is great fun. I've played around with Claude Code too, and Codex just a little bit, but I really liked Colab. And I'll show you why. So here's the part where you're like, what is that? Right? This is also me. What is that? So I had using Gemini, I had it write and tell me what each step of the task of the code that we were writing together was doing and why it was doing that. So you can kind of baby step your way into learning to code by just messing around with Colab. Again, problem formulation. What are you trying to solve? Work on the prompts with Claude or ChatGPT or whatever LLM you're using, and then just start working in Colab to write that code. But I went back and I said, tell me what you're doing and why you're doing it, right? So I have these text blocks between all the code, and that's where it ran it. And you can see there were errors. So again, just as I learned from errors with the Agentic browser, I learned from errors with doing this code where I was like, what is going on? So then we did it again. I was like, data analysis, what is going on? Tell me, right? And so this code, this basic one, I can just run all the cells. I might run out of GPU. So I didn't know if that will actually work in a live demo, but I want to show you the result. What it was able to do, I did have to, that very first line there says that you can access my Google Drive. So let me go all the way back up. So you can access my Google Drive, I told it, right? And and you have to be very careful and very specific in your file structures. That's why there's this, I've finally learned, that's why coders always put these little things here, because if there's like a errant space, it will not work. Things have to be very precise. But we created this folder and it knocked these all out as markdown files. And then I was like, hold up, that won't actually work in Pressbooks. I'm trying to put these into Pressbooks. I need them as HTML. So we modified the code a little bit, and now I have them all as HTML. And was that a huge time saver? It was. It took me a little time to create the process again, but 700, right? Here they are. So how lovely was that? Right? So that's really what I wanted to share with you today, just to be creative. Don't be scared of these tools. Well, do be a little scared with agentic browsers, but don't be scared with code. Don't tune out or turn yourself away from opportunities to be working with code to solve these kinds of problems. So I'm still refining that PDF process. I haven't, the next thing I want to do is see if I can go back to the Agentic browser and get it to grab those HTML files and put them, create a batch file and upload that and create a Pressbooks for me. I'm pretty sure I can get it to do that. So I'm also pretty sure I won't get it right on my first try. The collab process is in there, I think, but I haven't finished it. So sorry, Heather. Yes, it's in here. Oh, sorry. Let me find the right publication. Yeah, the VPAT thing I showed you is in here. And do I have it yet? Maybe I haven't copied and pasted. Maybe I haven't put it in. Yep, no, here it is. Okay, so there it is. It's in here. But this is to Markdown. I had to go one more step. I just haven't had time, honestly, to do it, to get it to HTML, but you could just do that yourself. Like, it's just a different library. So what I've learned about code is that when you're working in Python, you're just basically architecting something and bringing together different existing blocks of code. It's like the pandoc code. I can use that probably just to go straight to HTML instead of that markdown step. I've just been working with markdown a lot for other tasks with using large language models. That is one final piece of advice back to the environmental situation. And if you can specify markdown for your outputs when you're working with these large language models, it will really save you on tokens. They're all creating these fancy documents. The documents themselves aren't accessible. The markdown is accessible. So just kind of train yourself when you're getting any kind of output from a large language model for any purpose, right? Just tell it to output it into markdown, and it'll be much less token intensive. So Shara, yes, everything. I just shared the link, and everything is Creative Commons licensed and openly accessible in that book. So, and then you'll have to iterate. You'll find mistakes. You'll find better ways to do it. That's one of the things I love about our community is that we're always innovating. And yeah, I just shared the link to the chapter up there. Yeah. But again, a work in process. So keep in mind that it's a work in process. And I'm trying things. Those of you who know me know I do this. I try things and fail publicly. It's just something I'm really good at. Suzanne shared a great code beginners thing. And I like that too. Suzanne, I did Data Camp's Intro to Python class. There's other things on Coursera. But I will say, like, my very favorite way to do this is just to hop into Colab, and you can click on the little Gemini prompt and talk to it, right? So just get in there in Colab and start talking. Just like, maybe, isn't that how most of us learn to interact with large language models, right? We just talked to them. So get in there and start talking to Colab, have Gemini walk you through stuff, have it try stuff. The problem formulation piece, those of us in humanities are actually exceptionally good at this. We know how to do this, and we know how to do it now with some extraordinary tools. So that's the presentation I have. I think we have like 3 minutes left if there are any other questions, but I really appreciate the chance to get to share this with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Liza. Anybody have any additional questions? This is inspiring me to learn a lot of new things.
Take baby steps. Again,
right.
it won't work the first time. For me, I was like, it won't work the first, second, third. I think it took me 5 or 6 tries but it felt so magical. Didn't it feel? I could share. I wonder. Let me see if it got done. I wonder if it got done. Hang on. Oh yeah, let me share really quick, just as we're ending. I'll share my screen. It's done. So, like, again, back to, does this save you time? Well, I was in a Zoom call, and I could be in a Zoom call, and no corrections were needed. Here's the final summary report. Now, I already knew that was going to be true because I've already run it, but it gives me that it's like everything is fine. And then it also tells me what might need manual review. Isn't that great? Don't you just love that little report? It's so fun. So that's my favorite part. And again, I didn't come to that immediately. I had to think, how will I verify? So anytime you're working with these tools, you want to build in some kind of verification process, as many of you have learned.
Hey Liza, there is a question in the Q&A
Oh,
looping all the way
Yeah.
back to the beginning. What is the specific Middle English project that you're hoping to work on using Agentic AI? Can you show off Beowulf or Chaucer?
Oh, Beowulf bot? Yeah. Let's see. I don't have OpenAI, I don't have ChatGPT open. What? How do I not have Chat? I honestly don't use ChatGPT for much anymore. Is that anyone else? Yeah. Okay. Actually, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. I just wrote a proposal today for something that I want to do around Old English. I'm going to probably do an independent study, but yeah, this is Beowulf bot. Yes, I want to practice strongly. That's a verb you're working on. What is the form of Gawetan? Oh, I'm go a ton. Let's see. And it just breaks it down for me. And you see it's a tutor, right? So it's not going to teach me stuff. I have to just practice with it. Yet it's very often a past participle prefix. How about, yeah, what? Oops. This is a good one. Yeah, what? No, it's not a participle. Yes, it could be a preterite singular. so that's Beowulf bot. Chaucer bot is much easier. Middle English is just so much easier. Let's see. No, I don't have, oh, I need to set those up. Can you help me to identify the biggest challenges? I think we're at time too, but hey, somebody, you want to, oh, and it's telling me Old English. Wow, that's pretty cool. I like that. I didn't even train it to do Old English. So there you go. You never know what you're going to get. Okay,
Do
guys.
you have links to those bots
Oh, those
somewhere
bots?
publicly,
Yeah.
Liza?
Yeah. Hey, can I share? My Latin one is better. I'll share like those ones I did. And again, like I need to like I just was realized just playing around with them. Oh, I need to go in and clean those up a little bit. But you always again, that's an iterative process, right? So when I talk about cleaning up, I mean something won't work for me, and I'll say, okay, we need to modify the instructions. So let's modify the instructions. That's what I mean by cleaning up. So um, I do a lot of that. I don't think these are like, they should be open. You should be able to play with them if you want. And I love feedback. So if it's not working for you or something is like, what, why didn't you do this instead? I will say my professor really liked Chaucerbot. He was like, yeah, this is a professor who hated AI. And he was like, oh, you could use AI like this. It will not translate for you. It absolutely will not. So
Well,
but it will
thank
help you
you,
identify.
Liza. This has
Thank
been
you
wonderful.
guys.
Thank you so much.
So fun.
We'll have a break now until the top of the hour, so about